Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. Japan sent an important warning to its people living in China. This happened because of a serious problem between the two countries. The problem is getting worse quickly. It is a big fight about politics and important foreign policy issues. Japan and China have had problems before, but this new fight is getting very serious very fast. The governments are talking, but the tension is high. The Japanese embassy in China gave this advice. They told Japanese people to be very careful. They must pay attention to the places around them. They should stay away from big crowds of people. The embassy said people should not go to public squares. They should also avoid places where many Japanese people usually gather. This advice was put on the embassy's website on Monday. The top government spokesman for Japan, Minoru Kehara, spoke about this. He said the government looked at the situation carefully. They looked at the safety problems in China. They also looked at the social conditions in the country. The government decided to send the warning based on all these things. This fight started because of words from a Japanese leader. Japan's new prime minister is named Sani Takaichi. She became prime minister last month in October. She said something important about Taiwan. Prime Minister Takaichi had been critical of China even before she took office. She worried about China building up its military power in Asia. China thinks Taiwan is part of its own land. China has said it might use force to take Taiwan. Taiwan is a democratic island. The Prime Minister's words made China very angry. China reacted quickly and strongly. They asked the Prime Minister to take back her words. China also called the Japanese ambassador to complain about the situation on Friday. The Japanese embassy gave more advice to its people. They told them to respect the local customs in China. They must also be careful with their words and attitudes when they talk to Chinese people. If a person sees a group that looks suspicious, they must leave quickly. They should stay away from any trouble. The problem has already caused issues for business. China told its people not to travel to Japan. This warning hurt Japanese companies that depend on tourists. The stock market in Tokyo went down by 3% on Tuesday. 2. The words of a leader. Japan had a new leader. Her name was Sani Takaichi. She became the prime minister in October. She is 64 years old. Before becoming the leader, she often spoke against China. She thought China's growing military power was a problem in the Asia-Pacific area. On November 7, the Prime Minister spoke to the Japanese government. She talked about the island of Taiwan. China says Taiwan belongs to China. China has said they might use force to take the island. Prime Minister Takaichi said something very important about this situation. She said Japan might help Taiwan if China attacked it. She suggested Japan could intervene using its military. Japan has special rules about using its military. Japan usually cannot start a war, but the rules let Japan use its army if the country faces a very serious threat. This threat must put the survival of Japan in danger. Prime Minister Takaichi said that a fight over Taiwan could be a situation threatening the survival of Japan. This statement meant Japan could legally send its military to help Taiwan under its current laws if such a fight happened. China heard the Prime Minister's words. China became extremely angry. They reacted furiously to the comments. China demanded that Prime Minister Takechi must take back her remarks immediately. China does not want any other country to interfere with Taiwan. The diplomatic fight started quickly. China took official action to show its anger. On Friday, China called the Japanese ambassador to their office. This is called summoning the ambassador. It is a very serious way for one country to complain to another. The dispute grew worse. On November 8, a Chinese official wrote a dangerous message online. The official was the consul general in Osaka. The message was very threatening. It seemed to refer to the new prime minister. It suggested that someone should cut off that dirty head. Japan was also angry about this message. Tokyo called the Chinese ambassador to complain about the post. The threatening post was later deleted from the internet. The strong words from both sides showed how tense the relationship had become. 3. An angry response. China heard the words from Prime Minister Sani Takechi. China was very angry. The Prime Minister's comments were about Taiwan. China thinks Taiwan is part of its own country. China has always said it will control Taiwan, and it might use force to do this. China does not want other countries to talk about using military action near Taiwan. Takechi had suggested that Japan could help Taiwan if it was attacked. This idea made Beijing furious. China quickly showed its strong disagreement. They took a serious step. On Friday, China called the Japanese ambassador to a meeting. This official action is called summoning. It means China officially demanded the ambassador come to hear a complaint. China told the ambassador that the prime minister must take back her words. They demanded that Takechi retract the dangerous comments. China felt that Japan was interfering in China's internal affairs. The anger was not only shown in official government meetings. One Chinese official showed his deep anger online. This official was the Chinese consul general in Osaka. His name was Zhu Jian. On November 8, he wrote a threatening message on a social media site called X. The message was very serious. The official wrote that he wanted to cut off that dirty head. People understood that he was talking about Prime Minister Takechi. She had only started her job in October. This message was a serious threat of violence. It made the situation much worse and showed how intense the diplomatic fight had become. China felt that Takechi's words strongly challenged their power over Taiwan. The message was later deleted from the social media site, but the damage was done. Japan quickly responded to this severe threat. The government in Tokyo called the Chinese ambassador to their office. Japan complained about the online post. They told China that such threats were not acceptable behavior between two countries. This action showed that the fight was escalating quickly. The angry response from China meant that the relationship between the two large countries was suddenly in a very bad place. 4. Problems for business. The fight between Japan and China started to hurt business. China told its people to stop traveling to Japan. This advice was bad news for many Japanese companies. Japan is a very popular place for tourists. Tourism businesses felt the pain right away. Many shops and hotels depend on visitors from China. China is the biggest source of tourists for Japan. In the first 9 months of 2025, almost 7.5 million Chinese people visited Japan. Now, these companies expect to lose a lot of money. The shares of these tourism companies went down quickly. Retail shops which sell goods to travelers also saw their business drop. This diplomatic problem made investors feel nervous. The whole stock market in Tokyo reacted strongly. When people are worried about the economy, they often sell their shares. On Tuesday, shares in Tokyo fell by 3%. This fall showed how serious the problem was for the country's economy. Japan and China have economies that are closely linked together. They trade many goods and services. China buys many products from Japan, and Japanese factories often make things in China. This close connection means that when one country is angry, the other one feels the impact. The sudden warning about travel showed how quickly a political problem can become an economic problem. Companies that rely heavily on Chinese buyers or visitors were especially worried. They had to think about how to manage without the usual large number of customers. The Japanese government watched the stock market carefully. They knew that if the problem lasted too long, more businesses would struggle. Business leaders hoped that the governments could find a way to fix the fight quickly. They understood that politics often moves slower than the stock market. For now, the economic damage was clear. It was getting worse every day. The travel warning stayed in place, creating difficult problems for many businesses. 5. Japan acts. The government of Japan was very worried about its people living in China. They needed to act quickly to keep them safe. The Japanese embassy in China sent an important message to all Japanese citizens. The message told them to be careful and watch their surroundings closely. Citizens were told to stay away from large groups of people. They should also avoid places that many Japanese people often use, such as certain restaurants or shopping centers. The embassy posted this warning on its website on Monday. Minoru Kehara, the main government spokesman for Japan, spoke publicly about the warning on Tuesday. He explained why the government sent the advice. He said the government looked at the situation very carefully. They checked the political problems and the safety of the area before sending the warning. This was a necessary step because the problems between the two countries were getting worse quickly. Japan also had to complain about a threatening message from China. A Chinese official wrote a terrible message online about Prime Minister Sani Takaichi. The official, who worked in Osaka, wrote a post that said someone should cut off that dirty head. This message seemed to refer to the Prime Minister, who had just taken office in October. Tokyo decided to complain strongly about this threat. They called the Chinese ambassador to the foreign ministry. Japan told the ambassador that the official's words were unacceptable and dangerous. The Chinese official later deleted the post, but Japan took the threat against its leader very seriously. The embassy warning gave more advice to citizens living in China. It said that Japanese people must respect the local customs. They must also be very careful about their words and how they acted when talking to Chinese people. The warning advised citizens to always keep a low profile. If someone saw a person or group that made them feel suspicious, they were told to stay away and leave that place right away. Japanese citizens needed to be very careful to avoid any trouble. Japan wanted to stop the fight from growing bigger. They decided to send a high-level diplomat to China. His name was Masaki Kanai. He was the top official for Asia-Pacific affairs in the foreign ministry. Mr. Kanai traveled to China on Monday to try and calm the situation down. He went to the Chinese foreign ministry soon after arriving. He hoped to talk with his Chinese counterpart to help fix the problem. Japan's actions showed they wanted to protect their citizens and find a peaceful solution. 6. A trip to talk. Japan needed to fix the problem. The government was worried about the rising tensions. They decided to send an important person to China. This person was a diplomat named Masaki Kanai. Mr. Kanai was a high-level official. He worked for the Japanese foreign ministry. His specific job was managing affairs for the Asia-Pacific area. This trip was very important. He went to China to talk directly with Chinese officials. He wanted to help stop the fight between the two countries. He hoped his visit would make the situation calmer. Mr. Kanai traveled to China on a Monday. He arrived and prepared for the important discussions. The next day, Tuesday, he went to the Chinese Foreign Ministry building. He was expected to hold talks with his Chinese counterpart, Liu Jinsong. These two officials needed to discuss the conflict and find a solution. The diplomatic fight had started because of the words of Prime Minister Takechi. She suggested that Japan might use military force if Taiwan was attacked. China was very angry. They had already called the Japanese ambassador to complain. China also told its own citizens not to travel to Japan. This was bad for Japanese businesses and tourism. Mr. Kanai's visit gave both sides a chance for face-to-face discussion. Talking is often better than sending angry messages through the internet or news. He wanted to explain Japan's reasons clearly. He also needed to listen to China's strong concerns. Stopping the argument was the main goal for Mr. Kanai. The relationship between the two nations was getting worse quickly. The problems were already hurting the economy. Japanese stocks had fallen by 3% on Tuesday because of the bad feelings. Mr. Kanai worked hard during his short visit. He spent time at the ministry building trying to find a way forward. He knew that Japan and China must work together because they are important to each other's economies. This trip was the first big step toward finding a peaceful way to handle the situation. If the meeting was successful, the nations could begin to repair their relationship. If it failed, the tensions would continue to rise, making life difficult for everyone. 7. Life for normal people. The problem between Japan and China became worse. This meant that daily life changed for many Japanese people living inside China. The Japanese embassy sent a strong message to all citizens. It was a serious warning about personal safety. Citizens needed to be very careful about their surroundings all the time. They were told to avoid big groups of people. Squares and other busy public places were dangerous now. People should also stay away from places that many Japanese visitors or residents usually visit, like certain popular restaurants or specific shopping areas. The embassy used its website to tell everyone the new rules. The statement was very clear. Safety must come first. Many citizens read the message on Monday. They knew the tension between the two governments was real. They had to change their routines immediately. They could not speak freely about the current political situation. They had to pretend that everything was normal, even when they felt worried. Japan's top government spokesman explained why the warning was necessary. He said that the political situation was not stable. The safety of the citizens was the main concern. The government looked closely at the security problems in China. They decided that the risk of trouble was too high for normal people. The warning also gave advice on how people should act. Japanese people must respect the local customs and rules of China. They needed to be very careful about the words they used when talking to local people. Their attitude was also important. They should not look angry, upset, or unhappy. If a person saw someone or a group that looked suspicious, they were told to leave the area right away. They should not wait to see what happens. Staying safe was the most important rule. This advice meant that simple, everyday activities became difficult to manage. Going to the supermarket or taking a child to school needed careful thought and planning. Living in China was now very stressful. People had to hide their normal routines. This constant worry made life hard for Japanese workers and their families. Many Japanese people work in China running businesses or teaching. Now, they had to work quietly and avoid attention from others. The diplomatic fight between the two countries created fear for normal people who had nothing to do with politics. They hoped the diplomats could quickly fix the problem so they could feel safe and return to their normal lives. 8. An unclear future. Japan and China are very important for each other. They are two of the biggest economies in Asia. Their businesses work together a lot. This connection is strong, but the current political problem makes the economic future difficult. Trade between the two countries is huge. Many Japanese factories operate in China. Also, many Chinese products are sold in Japan. If this relationship breaks, both countries will lose a lot of money and jobs. Tourism is a big part of the Japanese economy. Many people from China like to visit Japan for holidays. China is the biggest source of visitors for Japan. In the first 9 months of the year 2025, almost 7.5 million Chinese visitors came to Japan. When they visit, they spend money on shopping, food, and hotels. This helps many Japanese companies stay open and hire people. Now, the Chinese government told its citizens not to travel to Japan. This instruction hurts the Japanese economy immediately. The stock market in Tokyo went down sharply because of the news. Shares for companies that depend on tourism lost value quickly. The shares fell by 3% in one day. People who own retail shops and hotels are worried about their future income. This situation shows how quickly a political problem can hurt money and jobs in both nations. This diplomatic fight started because of Prime Minister Takaichi's strong words about Taiwan. China was very angry about her comments. This political disagreement is very serious for both governments. It makes it hard for diplomats to work together and find common ground. However, the governments are still trying to talk. Japan sent Masaki Kanai, a top official, to Beijing. His job is very important. he must reduce the tension between the nations. He met with Chinese officials to discuss how to fix the situation. They need to find a way to stop the argument soon. If the two countries do not talk, the economic damage will get worse every day. Life for Japanese citizens living in China is also difficult now. They must be careful when they go out. They must watch their words and attitudes when they speak with local people. They must respect local customs. This is because the political environment is tense and people might be angry. Overall, the future is unclear for both nations. Japan needs China's tourism and trade to keep its economy strong. China needs Japan for many things too, like technology and investment. The serious problem between the governments makes everything unstable. Nobody knows when the political leaders will agree on a solution. Everyone hopes the talks will be successful soon. They hope that business and travel can return to normal before more damage is done to the economies of Asia and the world.